Okay, you guys. So I don't know what questions we're going to talk about today, but we are going to answer some of your questions from our question box. Thank you, all you guys who do submit questions to the question box. It's really fun to hear from you. We get a lot more context. I want to say the wrong words here, but we get a lot more context of your life than we would if it was just a tiny little box. And we really appreciate that. We obviously don't get the whole picture. So that is my disclaimer here. Anytime we answer your questions, we just have to make assumptions and go from there. But I hope that this episode is encouraging. And thank you again for choosing to participate with the Now That We're a Family podcast. If you enjoy this, send it to a friend. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you for your ratings and reviews as we are ending the year here. We just have so much gratitude with the journey you guys have been on with us this year. And so thank you guys so much for being a part of that.
The Now That We're a Family podcast.
All right, Katie, before we jump into these questions, I just have to take a moment to applaud you. Here you are, 34 weeks pregnant.
35.
Oh, sorry. Whoa. My apologies already. That's what I get for trying to
No.
praise you.
I mean, I feel like every week is like earned at this point, you know?
No, your
So-
energy levels are crazy. That's why I thought for sure you're only 34 weeks just because of how energetic you are, how much you're getting done. But not only are you 35 weeks pregnant with baby number 6, you're doing it actually, you've done the whole pregnancy while living, in a tent. And the living situation we've loved it. So in some ways it's optimal, but in other ways it's far from being optimal. It is suboptimal when it comes to, the facilities. Our bathroom situation is not great. Our running water, we only have ice cold water from the creek. And this most recently, I think, showed itself in our life when the kiddos got sick. And actually we both got sick too. And we were taking throw up blankets out to the creek, trying to rinse them off, getting throw up off of our kids with cold water from the creek. It was quite the traumatic experience.
The kids were so brave. They were so hardcore. And I can't say I would rather words are failing me tonight, but
okay,
there's no one else I'd rather take care of sick people with or be sick with than you. I was just thinking that through this whole thing, just how, it's the middle of the night and we had one child blow out a diaper that was like a very sick diaper in their sleep suit, just covered head to toe, and I'm just looking at them in the middle of the night.
Like, where do I start?
Where do I start? Like, I can't plop him in a bath. What do I do? He's too little to put in the creek. And Elisha's just right there doing it all with me. So thank you so much.
Well, yeah, I mean, I couldn't even sleep through that one. So there's like,
so
what? I think I'll help you.
No, you did it with all of it. I feel like each night there'd be a night where you or I was feeling better and would kind of take the throw up duty.
Sure.
And let the other person sleep. And so anyways, just really grateful for the teamwork through all of it.
It's been great. And I cannot believe everything you've done while being pregnant. Yeah. You're incredible. We'll jump into this Q&A. Go ahead.
Well, can I tell people one thing real quick? Because you guys, anytime we say there's background noise, you always say you can't hear it. So shout out to our editor. But, you might be able to hear our dog squawking in the background. He's having some separation anxiety because we have lived just like hip to hip ever since moving out to this tent. Like, we drive into town, he's in the back of the car. We haven't known what to do, and he's gotten giant. He went from puppy to this 70+ pound dog and is still growing. And tonight is his first night on his own. We built him a dog run that is big and a big house out of plywood from our build, and it's all warm in there. And
we put like a heat lamp in there that he snuggles up underneath.
Yeah, so it's really nice. It's kind of like the most junky Taj Mahal you've ever seen. Mm-hmm. In terms of like comfort, I think it's 5 stars. In terms of looks, it's something you never want to have on your property.
Well, that's actually kind of a true statement for all of North Idaho. There's a lot of junky Taj Mahal type places here because people come to North Idaho for, living off the land, living in a rural situation, and the building codes up here are rather lenient. And so you get to see some fun looking structures, and then you go inside and they're like the most homey places ever. Right.
It's true. So keeping with that, I mean, it's just something that Elisha and I guess it cracks me up because it's something that when I look at it, it's like you and I would have said, we will never have something like this on our property one day.
Yeah.
And yet here we are back in the trees, just busting it out of desperation because we need some space from this dog. I'm reminded of Lady and the Tramp, where the tramp was wrong about Lady's family, but he tells her when the baby moves in, the dog moves out. And in our family, that is actually what's happening. We need him to have a little independence now. So
exactly.
Gentry's a big boy. Anyways, I'm sure he'll quiet down.
Cool. Do you want me to jump in?
Yeah, let's go.
Here we go. How can I handle friends who don't communicate when making plans / running late? I keep running into the problem of making plans with people and then never hearing from them the day of, or that they're running late, and I don't hear from them until they reach out, until I reach out. When I personally make plans, I commit to them and I am adjusting my schedule for it, but it doesn't seem like these other people are having that same consideration. I end up getting my feelings hurt and, wasting part of my day. And with a young child, it's hard enough planning around her schedule. Do I just need to give up on these friendships? Is this a common thing? Am I going to have to deal with this with all adult friendships?
Well, that's an interesting question. I don't feel like we've ever gotten that before.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously it is rude of someone to not value your time. And so that's frustrating, right? And so I think the ball is in your court as to how this is a win for you. Is it just annoying? You feel like this person doesn't value you as a person? And so maybe, that's not a good friendship to be having. Is it just... it doesn't bother this person? They might be a more sanguine, social, fly by the seat of their pants person. They're late everywhere they go. It's rude, but they aren't going to change for you because they aren't changing for anybody else. I have some very dear family members who are like that. Not with me. I don't get my feelings hurt, but my grandpa was one of those people who adored people, had a terrible sense of time, and would show up an hour late to something. And he would also be the last one to leave. And so everyone knew he just was delighted to be there and delighted to be in everyone's company. But he just had a terrible sense of time and was never on time. It was nothing against the other person. But if that really irks you, then shooting them a text, just knowing the ball's in your court because you're the one that's irritated. So it's either up to you to communicate and be like, hey, are you going to be on time? You're running late today, whatever, so that maybe you don't leave your house until 20 minutes late. Or if you're just like, this isn't worth it to me. It's annoying and I'm feeling annoyed at this person. You don't have to keep the friendship either. So to me, it just sounds like, what do you want to do in this situation?
Yeah, I think we've been on both sides of this topic, and we've been on the side where we've put plans on hold, or we've adjusted our schedule to facilitate a commitment that we've made with somebody else, and then they don't seem to take it seriously, or they blow it off, or they just run really late. But at the same time, we've done that to people, and it's really terrible. Where we think, we'll do this thing, let's do it, and then we're thinking, it's not that we blow it off because something better comes up. It's that like we'll be running late, and then all of a sudden we didn't tell them we were running late, and then we're just like, man, we just everything got out of hand getting out of the house, and then it's like we didn't communicate with them, and that's our bad. And I do really relate with feeling like you're up on jacks and you've pressed pause on your day, or you've blocked out a chunk of your afternoon to meet with somebody, to do an activity, and then that's not happening, especially when they don't give you a heads up, right? Because obviously life happens, and if we will have to cancel things, for the rest of our life, depending on what happens, sickness or whatever, things pop up, work things pop up, and so that's not what she's talking about. I don't think. I think that they're talking about people don't even communicate. It's like, this is the MO, and that is frustrating. But I like to your point, Katie, like that might just be their personality. And it's even interesting, since being married, you and I have found that even within our immediate family, each of the families have their different flow, their different rhythms. And so when we're meeting up with them, it's going to feel different. And so we try to adjust our expectations depending on who it is that we're getting together with. And so I do think that, the activities that you are scheduling have something to do with it. Like if it's a play date, a lot of people might look at a play date as being a very open-ended, flexible, come when you want to, leave when you want to. They view it like kind of like an open house. And so that might be better communication on what the thing is that you're getting together for. Whereas, if you're having somebody over for dinner, we try to be as clear as possible. Hey, we're eating at this time. Please arrive at this time. We don't say it like that, but it's very.
I love when people run 10 minutes late. That's a sweet spot for me.
Yeah, an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like, just don't show up early. I'm not ready if you show up early.
And I feel like in general, people respect a dinner commitment, right? Because they just know how eating works and kids' schedules work and cooking and preparing the meal. And so they will communicate. So I think this happens more often, at least it has with us with these I guess, rendezvous that are less formal. And so nobody really knows, like, okay, if we're meeting up at a park at this time, to somebody that might mean like, no, like we need to be there right at this time. And the other person could take it like right on anytime after that time, like I'll get there. And so I think we've experienced it on numerous levels, and I agree it can be really frustrating when you block time out of work or when you are skipping a nap time, right? Or so on and so forth.
And then it's up to you, I guess, if you feel like the behavior is just like someone's not, if you're getting your feelings hurt, is it because, you feel like someone's not valuing you as a person? Maybe they aren't, honestly. Maybe they don't value the commitment or the friendship or whatever. And so they're just kind of blowing you off. Or maybe they really do. And it's just something that is like Elisha said, they just aren't taking they don't think they take the commitment as seriously as you're taking it or whatever. And so get a discount when you sign up for what?
The Growth Initiative and
the Get It All Done Club. The Get It All Done Club is a home management program. Linked down below, you could see a free masterclass about everything I teach on creating a peacefully productive home. And the Growth Initiative is
about becoming the man that you feel God has called you to be, but you don't have the systems and the support to become it.
So if you're looking to grow together this year as a couple, even if it's in two different veins, we encourage you to check out the link below. You'll find a discount to the couples package.
And if you want to learn more about either of these programs, you can watch a free webinar for either one of the courses.
You could talk about it if you really value the friendship. Like if this was a sister or a cousin or a long-term friendship, then I would talk about it and be like, hey, what's going on? I keep getting my feelings hurt, whatever. If it's a friendship that's just kind of a passing one that you aren't super invested in, then I just move on too. You don't need to ride the emotional roller coaster. There's a lot of people out there. But I would encourage you to just build up thicker skin in general. People, most of the time, if they're showing up and wanting to hang out with you, are not trying to offend you at all. So don't take it personally.
Yeah,
I would encourage that.
We appreciate, and we actually are starting to appreciate more and more, a very structured, like the more structured, organized activities are, we enjoy them more. Meaning, like if we're going to get together with friends, we like a start time and an end time. We like to know what the activities are going to be, depending on who the friends are. And I think it's really good to know, like basically whose rules are you playing by in these social settings? Because if we're going to someone else's house for dinner, we're not going to impose our preferences on how the flow of the evening should go, because that's rude, right? And vice versa, when people come to our home, it is our domain, and we get to set the rules, and that's the blessing of a home and the blessing of your own domain. You get to create the culture, you get to express your values and in the way you see fit. And so when you invite people into that, hopefully they get to experience that with you, and hopefully the way you express your values are in a way so that they actually bless people that come into your home. But I also think it's really, just straight up rude if you try to impose your preferences when you're going into somebody else's domain, right? And I think that can happen as well when it comes to, hey, we said we were going to do it at this time, let's do it at this time. It's like, well, hey, if it's their thing, it's their thing, right? If it's their event that they're organizing, if it's their home that this is happening in, then it is their shot to call. And I get it when it's neutral spaces or when it's a third space, it is harder to know how that works, but usually there is somebody that's kind of the heading that up that has a flow for how things go. And a lot of groups like the laid back, island time, just come when it works out. When the kids get up, come if they sleep late, let them keep sleeping and show up once they're awake. And so, yeah, I think you just got to know the context.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And like you said, maybe if you just keep meeting in third spaces, then inviting someone over to your home or setting it up so that it's not as a big deal for you and you aren't sitting at the park like waiting for someone to show up for 30 minutes. It's like, okay, well, this friend usually runs late. And so I'm just going to, I have a bunch of things I can do at my house. I'll just prep dinner while I'm waiting for him or something like that. Nice. So maybe, you aren't going so out of your way to just sit up on jacks for this person. And it's kind of like, well, I'm going to make it a win for me. I would like to keep the friendship. This person's never on time. So I'll just busy myself with something else until they get here and then we'll hang out and it is what it is.
Nice. Okay, next question.
So many options.
Yeah. I do want to be more considerate with other people's I just want to respect people's time.
Yeah, we want to get better at this.
Yeah, because I don't like being on the receiving end of feeling like people aren't considering your time,
I feel like we always communicate it that we're late, that we're running late.
Yes.
But we would like to just get better at always being on time.
Okay. If you take Saturday as a Sabbath and Sunday to go to church, when do you accomplish household chores and projects such as yard work, garage reorganization, painting, and so forth?
That's a good question. What would you say?
Yeah, well, so we do use Sunday as like our going back to work day. So our ideal week is that really Friday night to Saturday night is when we do our Sabbath rest. And then we actually get up early a lot of times on Sunday. Sunday's not like a sleep in day on our ideal.
Well, sometimes you let me sleep in and you get up. Sure.
So I'll get up sometimes on Sunday because I feel like that's the first day of my week and I'm more in that mindset of getting stuff done. And so we go to the 10:30 church service. So there's a lot of time before church that we have. And then there's a lot of time after church. And so we use the Dan Sullivan's entrepreneurial time system where he's got free day, focus day, and buffer day. And we view Sunday as like our most key buffer day, meaning it sets you up for a focus day. So free days would be your free day where you're straight up free from work. Okay. No work activities. And that would be, our Sabbath once a week. And then you have focus days, which are like your hard hitting money making activities. That's like, you're just bringing home the bacon on those days and making it rain on those days. But then buffer days are crucial because they set you up to have successful focus days. And Sunday is it is the most crucial buffer day for us. And so I get up, and even though I might not be cranking out like big projects, that's when I do a lot of like organize the garage, like organize my office, tidy up the yard. I will mow the lawn. I mean, we don't have a lawn now. That's when I would mow the lawn. Those are buffer activities for me because they're setting me up to be freed from that and to dive into my focus activities. And then there are also a lot more like business related buffer activities where I'll be planning my week with Katie on that day. I'll be making sure, the cameras are charged for the podcast, that we've got SIM cards, that like the mic cord that wasn't working, I go replace that mic cord so that we're ready to record the podcast. We're scheduling, the team meeting. I'm going over my calls that I have for VMA. And so it's a lot of setting ourselves up on that Sunday. And so we do a lot of those activities that you mentioned, house projects, tidying things up. We view, at least that's when I like doing them. I mean, that's what we were doing all day. Today's Sunday, actually.
Yes.
We're recording this. And that was how we spent our afternoon.
Yeah, our afternoon was setting up our week so that we have independence from our dog. So we did build this whole structure this afternoon, which was a couple hours, and it was really fun, but it was definitely like a family work project. Elisha tidied up all around outside. I went grocery shopping. So often I do my grocery shopping on Sunday. I almost always meal plan and grocery shop that day, get caught up on laundry, tidy up, and get set up for the week. So Sunday afternoons through the evening, I would say, are a big time when we do that stuff. Also, depending on the project, we might do some of that on Saturday, depending on the zeal for everyone involved. So it's not like we want to do something that's torturous for us, but like yesterday, we went and bought all this stuff at Home Depot and everywhere to build Gentry's Run and stuff like that. It was fun to get out of the house. It was fun to go to town. The kids loved going to Tractor Supply and Home Depot. We enjoyed it. And so it doesn't mean that we won't ever do any type of project at all on Saturday. It just has to be something that we agree is a worthy project. So, I mean, we might do landscaping or
not just a worthy project, that is something that is actually restful.
Yeah, it's
and
like
it's not stressful.
It's taking you out of the grind. It's not a continuation of the week. It's something that's totally different. So, I mean, some of our Sabbaths, we would come out here and work on putting together a tent platform because that was really rewarding, fun work for us when we were living in town.
And this was the most restful place for us to come to when we were living in town, was out here. And you usually would have prepared that meal once again the day before. And so during your preps, you'd bring out an awesome chili or something that you'd make over the fire. And I loved those days. Those
were really fun, special days. So, yeah, it doesn't always mean a family hike or, just resting in the house or something like that. But I would say Sunday is where the work part of the projects come in. If it's fun to go get a bunch of flowers and plant them in the garden with Lucy, I'll do that on a Saturday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would say that from my perspective, work projects on the Sabbath are few and far between. We really don't do that from my recollection as a family.
We don't.
We really do take, that Friday night to Saturday night. And again, it depends on the time of the year, right? So what's available seasonally. But we love the hikes. We love playing games as a family, tons of reading on the Sabbath. And like you said, those work activities that we did were an anomaly in the sense that it's like, oh man, that would be so fun to take our lunch out to the property. And while we're doing it, let's put this trail in towards the, let's build the path to the platform, where we want to walk, and there are a lot more like putzing projects, I feel like, on the Sabbath. Anyways, that's how I've viewed them.
Yes. And then I would also say that in terms of home projects, my afternoons are home projects around the house. So when the kids are done with school and before Elisha is home for dinner, then I will work on home projects around the house. Organization, cleaning, housekeeping tasks. And I feel like often, like in the summers and stuff like that, Elisha will do projects after dinner. You'll work out in the yard, or you'll help me with stuff maybe right before dinner or after. Yeah. So it's like during the week, we do projects too after work and school hours.
Yes. I mean, again, going back to, it's depending on the season that we're in, they mentioned yard work, painting, garage reorganization. So, our days right now in December are really short. We don't have all that much daylight, and so after dinner, it's not like we're doing outside anything at all. We wrap it up before dinner. However, in the summer, we've got really long days. And so we would be eating dinner, and then we'd all be going out, and I'd be mowing the lawn, we'd be weeding the garden. And these are during the week, I guess is what I'm saying. And so a lot of these projects.
You'd often organize the garage after the kids went to bed, or,
you'd
listen to a podcast out there and organize.
Yes. I really enjoy
around inside.
Exactly. Because our garage also doubled as my office and our studio. And so I always really valued that space being organized and clean. And so oftentimes the kids would go to bed. I'd go out there for 45 minutes or an hour. And like you said, I'd, tidy up, clean stuff up, and while I was listening to a podcast. Yeah.
So anyways, I don't know. I feel like there's lots of hours in days and just around to be able to do that stuff when you just kind of work it into your weekly rhythm. It's not like we have one big work day at this season in our life. There have been times where we've done one big project day, and sometimes we still do that. Or it's okay, from dawn till dusk, this is just a project day, and we might do that on a Friday or something like that. But that's not typical.
Okay, here's another question. And well, actually, you know what? I'm going to paraphrase an assortment of questions, because there was probably 7 questions around wives really wanting to become less conventional, do things less, culturally normal, like when it comes to their diet. So how they shop, healthy, improving the health of their pantry and their refrigerator, screen-free living, homeschooling, count the number of children that they want to have. And so, did I say homeschooling already? Maybe, I don't know if I said homeschooling, where it's like the wife's she's there 100%. And the husband's like, whoa. Like, what are we doing here? I like movie night. Why are you trying to get rid of the TV? Like, why are you trying to get rid of my favorite foods? Like I work all day, I come home, I look forward to whatever, to having this treat or this meal. And so I think I'm glad they're asking, because I think you've done a phenomenal job at this, Katie. But what would you say to, and I know I'm not trying to disrespect those of you that put time into writing your specific question. I guess, took the liberty to kind of, because I do think that there is some crossover in each of those categories. And so I just decided to kind of ask it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a lot of these too. So that makes sense. And I mean, we kind of touched on how to bring something up in an episode or two ago, talking about what was something with kids. Should we force our kids to do stuff?
Oh, okay.
And those conversations, maybe how to approach something if you aren't on the same page with your husband. But I would say this is the thing. It's really easy to keep our own comforts, and as we're comfortable, let go of them. And it's easier to take someone else's comforts away because we see that they aren't benefiting them to the same extent that they could be benefited. And that person's not ready to have their comforts taken. So it's a totally different position to be in. If your husband came home and was like, okay, we are, what if he said, we're coming home, we're moving out to a tent, you're going to stop highlighting your hair, I think you need to go no makeup. I want all the kids to, do X, Y, and Z, a totally different schooling method. And you'd be like, okay, hold on a second. You know what I'm saying? And so I think it's really easy. I just threw out a bunch of random things there that maybe we just think are arbitrary. But then,
well, no, those happen. It's like we know people where all those things have happened to them.
Or it's like, okay, I want you to start wearing a dress down to your ankles, and you're like, what's wrong with my pants or whatever? And I'm just saying it could kind of be, we'd all look at that husband and be like, whoa, you're crazy. Like, take it easier on your wife. Slow down. Sure. And I think that that's something.
Sorry about that.
I should getting called during the podcast. And obviously there's a lot of women that have respected their husbands in making those decisions and have gone along with them. And I think that's wonderful, but it can be very jolting and jarring.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's cool when the wife has that full, submitting unto her husband as she is, as though unto God, and being like, all right, let's do it. Like, you feel like the Lord's leading us in this direction. I'm on board. And that's really inspirational. And it's really cool to see. But as the husband, you don't need to do that. Like, it doesn't need to be that jarring. And you can make it a lot more of an enjoyable process, and a process that instills more and more confidence in your wife has more and more confidence in you going forward, that they're not like just, always wondering like, what's the next thing going to be? But they can feel loved and they can feel cherished, because obviously it's incumbent upon men, and it is our duty and it's our calling to make our wives to not just love and cherish them, but hopefully they feel that too, right? Hopefully they feel that way.
So I bring that up to say something that helps me the most when it comes to wondering why Elisha won't get with the program, if I have something that I just think is great, is flipping it, throwing out some random examples in my mind and being like, okay, I would think this was crazy too, because it's going to make sense to you and all your girlfriends and all the podcasts you're listening to, because you're in that space. Just like if your husband came home with some radical idea, it would make sense to him and the friends he's having conversations with and the podcasts he's listening to and the books he's reading. So I think we just need to be really gentle with our spouses when it comes to changing things that they know and love. I think it's really important, like Dr. Laura says, and she's kind of a nut, but I think she says something really good that's always stuck with me. And it's, remember what animal you brought home. And it's a funny thing, but it sticks in your brain. And that is, if you married a man that plays video games, if you married a man that goes out for beers with his buddies weekly, if you married a man that loves ice cream after dinner every night, that's the man you married. That's the man you said, I want to live with for better, for worse, for richer, for poor. And there was no caveat that he was going to stop doing these things after 5 years when it got annoying.
Okay, real quick. If you're looking for music lessons for your family, piano lessons, guitar lessons, fiddle lessons, ukulele lessons, mandolin lessons, you can subscribe to Voteberg Music Academy and get lessons for the whole family. Subscribe to the piano course, one subscription, get you piano lessons for the whole family. Subscribe to guitar, that gets you guitar lessons for the whole family. We'll link it below. You get a special discount, and you can see that below by listening to our podcast. That's how you get the discount. Go check it out.
And just like he married you with your quirks or the shows you like to watch or the things you like to eat or whatever the case may be. And so, or like the yoga pants you like to wear when you don't do your hair or whatever. So I think we need to remember you didn't marry someone else's husband. So if you married, I mean, if you're looking over here at Elisha, for instance.
Oh, easy.
You're seeing how he just does everything perfectly. And it's like, wow, like Katie and Elisha seem so aligned. And like, he's stoked about the Sabbath and he wants to homeschool and he's leading their family and doing Bible times or all these things. Those were all things that Elisha had envisioned when we got married. That was who he was when we got married. And it was something that I feel like we've both grown in valuing too, and we've definitely not agreed on everything going forward. But these things are going to look different depending on who you married and their desire level and their vision for family. And so I think the best thing you could do is just learn together with your spouse and be very, very gracious.
Yeah, I agree. And, I do think it's crazy empowering as the head of the home to realize the position that you do have and the role that God has blessed you with as husband and father, if you are blessed to have children. And then when you're able to see your wife being an actual helpmeet to this vision that you are starting to gain, that the Lord's giving you, and you're like, man, the home can do so much. Like my home, who am I that the Lord would see fit to bless me with a wife? What a glorious thing, that I've got this gift. He that findeth a wife findeth a good thing and obtaineth favor of the Lord. I've got this favor from the Lord, and now I've got children. And so now I get to call myself a father just as God is God the Father. Like a crazy thing that I'm now in this position to lead my home. That's our domain. We are ruling over our home, and we are called to do it well. We're going to do it imperfectly. We are so dependent on God's grace for all of our shortcomings and our failures. But when you see the home as this little microcosm of the greater universe, or what does C.R. Wiley say? The
Cosmos.
The cosmos, yeah. For how God has ordered things to be, you're like, whoa, what can we do with my home here? And then when you feel like your wife isn't an adversary in that journey, but she's an asset, she's coming alongside, and she's that helpmeet, that Eve was in the garden. It's like, look, let's go, let's really link arms here, and let's actually be doing some really good, productive work. It's powerful. And there are times where you come to me with ideas, and actually this is 99% of the time, where that's how I view you and that's how you present yourself. Where it's like, hey, like we are on the same page here. This is the home that the Lord's blessed us with. He's leading you. He's guiding us. What about this change in tactics? And so that could mean, eating out less. That can mean less movies. That can mean, screen free or this school curriculum. It's kind of a change in tactics, not a change in the strategy for our life, not a change in the overall, like I said, direction we're taking our family, but a helpful shifting of the practical day in and day out functions that could actually help us move forward. And when you approach me with that way, I'm humbled that the Lord has blessed me with you and that you would even think to come and bless me with these ideas. It's like the fact that you're actually taking the time. And I think any husband does feel this way when he actually considers what his wife's doing, when she's thinking about the diet of their home, when she's thinking about the education of their children. It's like, these are his kids. And so when she brings this super expensive homeschool curriculum or this, homeschooling, they want to join this co-op that's going to take some of her time, or they want to pull them out of this public school, or they want to so on and so forth. Just the fact that she's considering that she's considering putting time and energy, that's where her thoughts are at. that is a crazy blessing to a man to have that as an asset. And the same goes for, let's get rid of these screens. I think it's better for our children's, mental health. It's better for their overall function, and it's better for their overall growth if we remove these from our home. Like, the fact that your wife is thinking about those things is a blessing. And if you're able to present it that way, because it is a blessing that you're thinking about those things. Like, it's a service to the home when the mom is thinking about things like that. But somehow, when it gets to the communicating it to the husband, it feels like it's an attack on him. And that's zero how this started, right? Like, the way this all started was by being a blessing to the home, to this home that he's the head of, that he's leading. And you're like, how can I help your home do better? And then by the time the message gets to the husband, it's like that you're the problem. Why do you have your chips in the pantry? Like, those are the last thing with seed oils in our home, and yet you're not getting rid of these things. And you said something really good too, Katie, babe. It's so much easier to work through giving up things on our own timeline and on our own terms. And then you get there and you're like, oh, great. I don't use screens like I used to. I don't eat, after dinner. I don't snack after dinner. I don't watch the same shows that I used to. Now it's time for you, to remove these from your life, even though you were able to get there kind of in your own way and in your own timing.
Well, you've always been really gracious, and I feel like you bring ideas into our home just as often as I bring ideas into our home when it comes to our children and your vision for our family and the big picture of where we're going. And you challenge me a lot to grow. And I do think there are some things that can be helpful. One is just starting with the kids instead of, aim for 80% of the time, right? So I think children are a big reason we get excited about all this stuff in the first place. Diet, screens, all this stuff. We all of a sudden have these children we're trying to raise, and they're the catalyst for us realizing all of a sudden that these behaviors or these things in our life are not serving us. And so then it pains us greatly when we feel like, maybe we aren't coming to our husband with this attitude of blessing him because it's already turned to bitterness and we do see him as the problem. And you think of that, if he's seeing us as the problem, then we're going to get really defensive about that. And so I think 80%, think progress, not perfection here. If you're feeding the kids at home X amount of days a week, and then they get treats when they go out with daddy, that's fun. That's his fatherly prerogative. You're keeping the kids screen free when they're home with you all day long or after school until daddy gets home. And then, daddy gets home, if he really enjoys TV or he really enjoys video games or whatever the case may be, and he still sees benefit in that and he wants to use that as a tool to bond with his children, then you being able to have this free, I know it's easier said than done, okay? But just telling yourself like, well, okay, they could be watching stuff all day long when they're with me, or they could be on iPads all day long. As it is, they get this treat with their dad. It's a special time. He's an involved father. Just let it go and chalk it up to that until your husband decides to be convicted on his own. And it doesn't mean you can't bring research to him over time with, again, that heart to bless, or you can't bring up stuff you're reading, or, hey, I'm considering this, or do you think, I noticed Johnny's behavior after doing this. It's really stressful. Do you think we could limit it to a weekend? Or, you can have those conversations and gradually get closer to where your ideal is in aligning with your husband on these things. But versus, throwing out all your husband's favorite foods or something like that, it's going to mean a lot to him. If I read one gal's comment, and you or one of our listeners, and you were saying that you were getting really frustrated making two different meals because you have to follow a really strict dietary plan for your health, and you want the children to eat healthy, and then your husband still wants his junk food. And so naturally you're like, hey, I really want him to just get on board and eat the stuff I'm eating, but he's not ready to do that. And I think, wow, this is an incredible opportunity to bless your husband, and he's going to notice it takes extra effort for you to make him a special meal every single night, but that's a way that you can show him that you love him. And over time, he's going to either get frustrated with his lack of energy or his, he's going to become convicted on his own about his own health. Or he's just going to be like, wow, I've got the best wife in the world and she makes me all this stuff that I love and she can't eat it. And it's just a way that you get to serve him, And so I get it's annoying, but like that might be your special gift to your husband for the next 20 years is making him regular pasta when you're eating the chickpea stuff. Mm-hmm. And he'll take note of that, but he will also take note of your bitterness if you're doing it with a bitter heart. So we really have to work on our hearts in these ways. And again, all we can control really is our own appetites and our children's. Aim for less is more is less in whatever category you're trying to do. And then pat yourself on the back that you're headed in the right direction. And your children, it might not be perfect. It's never going to be perfect in any home, but it's better that the kids grow up with a mother that adores their father and speaks well of him and is respectful and is excited about what he's doing than being like, this oaf is jacking with the plan.
Right.
Because your kids are going to sense that more than anything else. That's going to poison their life more than a screen or a movie or a commercial or, eating Snickers all day, every day.
And boy, I mean, what you just said is humbling, Katie, because when you say that, I'm like, that sounds crazy hard to do. And then I consider it and I'm like, you've done that. No, you have. You are speaking from experience.
It is way easier to say, you guys. I know that.
And I'm like, oh man, I really want to, honestly, I want to be the type of leader in our home that you trust me to be. I guess like you in the way that you trust the Lord and say, okay, like Elisha's call, every time you do that, I'm humbled because it's like, wow, man, your ideas might be better. They might seem better. You might have done more research or, read the articles and yet you defer to me in those moments. And it is crazy. It's humbling, but it's also, like I said, empowering. And, it is crazy. The Holy Spirit is such a better convictor than anything. And it's just for when men do get the vision, when men do feel that not just the honor and the privilege, but the true burden, the responsibility. Like it's just kind of like, hey, burden is such a negative thing, but it's really responsibility. It's just kind of like, this is on you, and the implications are eternal. You better take this seriously. Then a lot can happen. A lot of good can happen, but a nagging wife usually doesn't bring that conviction. It is the Holy Spirit that brings it. And so, I mean, everything you just said is crazy to think about because you've done that time and time again in our home. And it's always better for our home and for our marriage. And you'd probably even say for your personal happiness.
Oh,
when you like you said, you are like, wait a second, this isn't my prerogative. Like this is his call, and you back up. Our home flourishes, and I don't make the right call the first time, maybe, but then I get around to like, wait a second, what are we doing here? And you were like, man, I was there all along. You could do that. That's not the attitude you have, but it's always so much better for our home when you, when you operate in that manner.
Well, I've been convicted because I don't know why I feel like this is more a husband to wife thing than a wife to husband thing. At least what we hear in the question box, it is all coming from wives that are frustrated. And then in my experience, I've been the only one that has struggled vocally with nitpicking Elisha's life apart and trying to change him, even when I'm blessed with the most incredible man that I know, that I respect more than anything. It's like you could still find a little flaw here or there to tweak. And I don't know why this is, I feel like a woman's battle to fight, because I mean, we see this in scripture. We see it's better to live in a small dwelling than in a wide house with a brawling woman.
Yeah, the corner of a housetop. Right?
Yeah, corner of a housetop.
Yeah.
Or a nagging wife's like a dripping faucet. We don't hear those things about husbands in scripture. And I think of that, and I've been so humbled because it's like when I have a low moment, or like I eat the entire chocolate bar in one sitting, Elisha has never brought it up. if I've
I just go buy another one for myself. I'm like, fine. I know where that came from.
no, he doesn't. If I let myself go and just, I've had some bad moments here in the tent where I just have been in my pajamas all day and I don't even see a mirror all day and I probably look like a total like hoodlum. He like never mentions it. Like, hey, you're looking like a slop. Like, what's the problem? When we were in our when I had control of the bank accounts, meaning like I had the login information and took care of all of our bills and stuff, I would like scan through and nitpick every dollar he spent. And now I don't see our bank accounts. It's not like I can't if I don't want to. But Elisha's taken over all the bills and stuff. He's never brought up once, hey, where's this charge? Where's this charge? Where's this charge? And I know that that's not per se every single marriage, but it's just like, I'm just so humbled at how much grace, like it makes me emotional, like how much grace you give me, like over and over and over and over. And there's a million things you could change about me that are so imperfect. And, if I go on a YouTube binge or whatever the case may be, like he's just never brought anything up. And I'm really, really humbled by that whenever I think of, oh, well, he could tweak this here, he could tweak this here to be, he's already the most optimal guy I know, but.
No, well, first off, thanks for saying that. You are the easiest person to not say anything critical towards, because I'm genuinely grateful for you. And again, I think it's probably going back to this grasping of the gospel, when you consider what Christ has done on who you are apart from Christ. Mm-hmm. I do feel like it's not that I don't feel allowed to speak up if there's something that you do that bugs me, or that I'd prefer if it were different. Of course, in a marriage, of course, you've got that freedom to discuss all those things, right? You're trying to grow. You're trying to love the other person, and so you would hope that the other person tells you how they can love you more, and vice versa. But when it comes to nitpicking and criticizing, it's not like I don't know. I do think a characteristic of Christians, one of the first foremost, needs to be like, who are we to think we deserve anything better? Not like I think we maybe grasp that, or at least we try to grasp that on this eternal level of like, yeah, I get it. I deserved hell because of my sins and because of, my heart posture towards God, and I rebelled. And he took on death for me, and he paid the penalty. And I shouldn't even say that flippantly like that, because that is, that's like the greatest news ever, right? And so we might believe that aspect of this eternal thing, and yet we think we deserve better things in this physical life than what. It's just kind of like, well, what do we deserve in this physical life, right? We know we deserve hell eternally, so why would we think that we deserve, our spouse to what? Like pick up after themselves, or to deserving. We don't deserve anything. Like we don't deserve anything from anybody here on this earth. And so I think the more you have a sober perspective on your on your sin, on who you are apart from Christ, it's hard to get your place, because it's not that I don't get annoyed. I get annoyed, or I'll get frustrated. But even before I would even consider criticizing, it's kind of like, well, like when to get to that point, I would have to overlook so many of my personal shortcomings that I know are not a blessing to you, and be like, what am I just going to, and so anyways, but I do think that I think that should be something that Christians should all be slow to criticize, because it's like, well, what do we deserve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is a big thing. This is probably, it doesn't show up on like one of the biggest issues in marriage, but I would say a critical spouse probably is up there. Finances and physical intimacy, I know, are two big hot topics in marriage that are painful, but I think a critical spouse probably affects both those areas, honestly. And it's a very easy place to be in. It's a very easy place to be justified in, but it doesn't ever get the fruit that we want. And so again, Elisha and I have both been in the position where we wish that the other person would do something differently. And like Elisha said, that's a helpful part of marriage, is that we do get to be iron sharpening iron in a good way. You know, we get to tell each other if there's something in our teeth, right? And that's a blessing. And I think we've both grown so much in marriage because the other person has called stuff out in us.
Yes.
For sure. And been like,
that's
hey,
the blessing of it.
yeah, like I've become aware of things that I wasn't aware of before, and hopefully have led me to become more gracious and more of a better person since being married to Elisha. And so it's not, I'm not saying like, oh, ignore anything that ever bugs you, but if we can keep a soft heart towards our spouse and assume the best of them and love them and come to them from a place of wanting to genuinely bless the home and have open hands. If it's not going to work out, then the Lord's going to lead. He's going to be the Holy Spirit. Something my mom always said, her mom always said was, don't be the Holy Spirit in your husband's life. You can't be, like Elisha mentioned earlier. And my mom has said that a lot. And it's just...
but the Holy Spirit can use you.
Yes.
But most likely they're going to use you through you submitting to God and
trusting God.
Trusting God, right.
By respecting and loving and honoring your husband as an imperfect human. Just as you're going to grow the most when your husband is loving and cherishing and being united with you as an imperfect human versus coming at you with a critical attitude. Just criticism isn't real motivating in marriage. And so you've got to work on that heart posture so that if you're coming to your spouse, you could do it without attacking them. Because if you're going to attack them, be like, you're the problem here, which I've done, it doesn't get you anywhere. And then you have to start over. Be like, okay, how do I reapproach this? I feel like we both had that happen.
No doubt. We're like, okay, this is a hard stop.
Yeah.
Like, let's almost drop it. Like, I need to restart.
And sometimes we do. Sometimes we have just apologized, dropped stuff, and then tried a new tactic coming in being like, hey, I really have your best interest at heart. I have our family's best interest at heart. And we have topics like this that we circle right now that I think you and I we don't see perfectly eye to eye on. Decisions for our kids, decisions for our family, decisions for our future going forward. That's never, I don't think you just check all the boxes and you're like, yippee skippy twang. We agree on everything, you know?
Yeah, it does. We've never experienced that. That's for
Usually it's like, okay, one of us thinks we have a slightly better idea than the other person. And so hopefully over decades of marriage, we grow in the getting better at communicating, getting more efficient, knowing, having the other person's best interest at heart and trusting that they have our best interest at heart and being able to have really profitable conversations. Because I would say that that's even happened over the last 8 years compared to our first, 6 months of marriage. Everything just really felt like an attack.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
Oh, no doubt.
We
I
didn't have that trust built up yet.
Right. And just, there was a lot of, we couldn't get through the intro to a conversation.
Yeah.
Let alone get to, a conclusion and something that was helpful. And I will say this, and then we can wrap it up. I do think part of God's giftings with men and women, men are more big picture, I think, in general. And so I think a gift that the men have is to really kind of test, like to what does it say? Like what is it? What my dad would always say, like the thermostat versus the thermometer, or the husband checks the temperature, or sets the temperature. Oh, dang it. Now I can't even remember. But basically what I was going to try to say, I'll ask my dad what he always said, because I always thought it was true. I don't know if I understood it.
I feel like you told me something like that, and I thought that's really good.
Yeah, but basically I think men do have a little bit more of this bigger picture. I'm speaking in generalities here, but a little bit more bigger picture, kind of like, hey, what's the pulse of the home? How are things going here? What's the attitude, the mood? Is everything going well? And people often compare the head of the home, the husband, to the CEO, and the mother to like the COO, like, she's more in the operations. And I'm not saying that that's the perfect comparison, but that is for the sake of, just the point that I'm trying to make. You think of a CEO, he is more bigger picture, outside of the weeds, looking and forecasting as to like where he wants to take the company. And I think men can do that really well. We naturally are more that way, thinking big picture, not getting caught up in the minutia in a negative way. But then at the same time, we need the COO. It's like, because obviously the daily tasks, the daily, this going screen free or the diet, those are those are going to get us to the goal, to the vision here, seeing that come to fruition. But I do think that those two perspectives can really rub each other wrong, where you've been like, why are you not seeing how important this is? And I'm like, oh, I think we're doing fine. Like things are I don't think we need this catastrophic life change, because I think things are going really well overall, big picture. And you might be a little bit more in the daily, being like, everything needs to change. And I'm being dramatic, but I think those have kind of been some of the push and pull of our dynamic. And I think that's a common man and woman dynamic, husband and wife dynamic. And I think that's why the best homes, both are operating in their roles, and maximizing their giftings in those roles.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing, is you have two different perspectives that, when they're aligned, can just be really powerful, because you're both able to provide different perspective and insight. And then you see other homes where the home's just completely in shambles because the team isn't working together, in a healthy way. And I do think that, just like with almost everything that male and female that God created, there's just this beautiful dynamic of, to use a totally secular term, yin and yang. No. It seems like almost sacrilegious.
I don't even think that's secular. Is that? It's
it's like a totally different religion. But just that, these two beautiful differences working together, or just totally opposing, destroying each other. Mm-hmm. And what Satan wants to do is to capitalize on our differences and just use us to destroy each other. And the Lord's going, no, I gave you guys those different perspectives on purpose. I gave you those different leanings on purpose, and the different roles, the different insights. There's value to both of them, and you can both learn from each other. Mm-hmm. And always submitting to God and His timing. Because ultimately, as women, we want things done on our timeline. And that's not always the Lord's timeline. I mean, as humans, we want things done on our timeline. And so with our husbands, with our families, with the changes in our homes, all of those things, our husband's not the problem. The Lord is the one who we ultimately need to surrender things to and be like, okay, Lord, if this was in your will, then my husband would be like, yes, let's go. And it's not. So I'm just going to keep living my life, because the Lord will lead your husband.
Amen. Folks, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.